So in my third video looking at Whitechapel 1870 to 1900, I'm going to look at police organisation in Whitechapel. But before I do, let's just give a bit of context to this in terms of policing the nation. So at this time there were many different police forces and each force was organised locally. The exception to this was actually the Metropolitan Police, which reported directly to the Home Secretary, who appointed the head of the force. However, police work was hampered by insufficient manpower. By 1885, the Met Police was made up of over 13,000 men, but only 1,383 of those were available for duty at any one time. In 1842, a detective department was added to the Met Police, but it was tiny and ineffective. In 1878, the CID had been set up with 216 officers, which cleared up the confusion between crime prevention and detection, but detection standards still did not improve. Charles Warren became Metropolitan Police Commissioner from 1886, following a series of strikes and demonstrations against government policy. And it was him that had called in the army to deal with the demonstration in Trafalgar Square that became known as Bloody Sunday. Police action on this day added to the growing feeling that the police favoured the middle and upper classes over the poor, and this made police in the poorer districts such as Whitechapel more difficult. So how was policing in Whitechapel itself organised? Well, the police division of Whitechapel was known as H Division. The shift began with marching out into Whitechapel, and at night they would stop and question people to find out what they were up to. Work was boring, but it was also sometimes dangerous. Pay was not that good, and the quality of recruits varied. The police were beginning to enjoy a respectable reputation by this time, but they were seen more negatively in areas such as Whitechapel. So, when it came to Whitechapel itself, well, it was a breeding ground for crimes ranging from theft to murder. Many crimes were directly linked to the higher levels of poverty and unemployment in the area. Prostitution was also a key issue, so many women became prostitutes in order to survive, some in brothels, but others out on the streets, where they were more vulnerable to rape or assault. There were an estimated 1,200 prostitutes and 62 brothels in Whitechapel alone. Alcohol was another difficulty that the Metropolitan Police in Whitechapel had to deal with. Alcohol was the only escape that many people had from their terrible lives, so drunkenness then often turned to violence and alcoholics could turn to crime to get money for more drink. The combination of rookeries and narrow alleyways as well, and other spaces with poor lighting and multiple entrances, made policing even harder. There were also protection rackets in the area, and they were run by gangs of East European immigrants. Anyone who refused to pay had their shops or stalls smashed to pieces. Ordinary people were afraid to report them though, and so it was impossible to gather enough evidence to arrest them. Now, within the Whitechapel community itself, police constables were often regarded more like social workers by the local authorities. They had to deal with issues like vagrancy, lunatics, pubs, street traffic, sewerage, litter, runaway horses, fire and accidents, as well as prostitution. They met with resentment when they acted as poor relief officers or when they tried to control prostitution. But they did actually also provide real benefits, such as when they hosted soup kitchens or looked after stray children. Okay, so please check out my final video for this short topic as well, where I'll look at the investigative policing in the area around the time of the Jack the Ripper murders.